Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, managing partners, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm, practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. Offices for Whitaker and Hamer conveniently located in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay-Varina, Gastonia, and in Morehead City. I'm Morgan Patrick. Again, consumer advocate. We go back and forth on legal topics. Again, you're going to have situations where maybe you've got a question about something that you're going through. You can always contact the law firm by calling 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about, 800-659-1186. An attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. And as always, email your questions to the show, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com, and we'll get to those questions on a future broadcast. Power of attorney versus guardianship. Guys, dive in.
Dive on in, Josh. We're going to get that energy level. It's progressively coming up, man.
It is. It is. It is. Before we get there, though, I did want to tell Morgan, both me and you, Joseph, we got to spend some time in our Morehead City office. That office is not one that I usually spend a ton of time in, just because I live in kind of the Raleigh, Garner, Fuquay area.
Thinking about moving? Thinking about moving down there?
Oh, yeah, we're moving, man. We're getting out of this job. We're getting down to the air is so nice there.
We got a good hot weekend. It was nice to be out there, and that's just that Morehead City, Emerald Isle, Swansboro area. It's just awesome. A beautiful area of North Carolina.
It's great, man. But have you ever been at Clayton before?
I have once or twice.
That's a nice office down there too, man. I'm not tooting our own horn, but top-notch office down there.
Today we're not in studio with Morgan. We're not at Shady's today. Joe's down in the Clayton office remoting in to the studio, and I'm down in the Garner office after having spent some time in Raleigh and Garner today. And like I said earlier in the show, our attorneys were fanned out across the state today. Some in litigation, some in transactions. We were down in Gaston County in court today, Wake County in the courthouse, and down in Johnston County. So we were all over the place in state and federal court. And so just going to say that wherever you're listening to us from, we're on the radio on different stations across North Carolina, and you can download us as a podcast. But we're really tuned in to North Carolina and the legal needs of a North Carolinian. And so we're always happy to help. And in that vein, I've gotten a lot of questions this week about power of attorneys and basically what you do in the absence of a power of attorney. That's kind of how the question came up for me a lot this week is, hey, my mom's in a home, or, I've got to undergo surgery. I'll be out of action for 2 or 3 weeks. How does my business keep operating? How am I going to pay my bills and stuff? I'll be out of it. And Joe, we've talked about it several times, but a part of any good estate plan is a power of attorney. And just by way of review for the people, what is a power of attorney?
That's right, my brother. We have talked about it a few times, but if you didn't check in to those riveting episodes, we're going to run it down for you again. So basically what a power of attorney accomplishes if we're going to dumb it down to its simplest form, is it gives another individual or individuals, you can appoint, alternates and backups and things of that nature. But it's going to give those people power to act on your behalf as we call them an attorney in fact, or an agent, when you're not able to be there in person, or if you're, mentally incompetent or physically unable to represent yourself. So that's what it is at its simplest form. And then we can go from there and we can do a lot of elaboration on that.
Yeah. And we do, we talk about an estate plan. And I think when someone talks about estate planning, I think about that's something old people do, right? Myself included. Right. So I'm putting myself in that bracket. But
you should. Super old, man.
But estate planning is not, that should be our new tagline. Estate planning is just not for old people. We can put that on my card, or maybe a shirt. But
some of the youth too, man.
We're seeing a lot of kids, right? We're seeing a lot of kids going off to college, and they're starting to do some estate planning, because we've seen some unfortunate situations where someone goes off to college and God forbid something happens. Parents are still usually heavily involved. a lot of times in their kids' life, even when they go off to college, making them doctor's appointments, helping them get medical records to one doctor to the other or to the school or what have you. And there's laws are different now. And doctors and medical folks won't talk to you just because you're a parent if that child is an adult, is over 18. So we see a lot of kids now even do some minor estate planning, getting power of attorneys in place. But Joe's right. A power of attorney allows someone to act on your behalf. And there's all kinds of restrictions and limitations and specifics you can leave in there. A power of attorney can be very broad. It can be very limited, but most estate plans, you're going to want to have a power of attorney in place. So if something happens to you, God forbid, car accident, plane crash, some sort of disease or something else requiring medical treatment.
You get rabies. I mean, anything can happen,
Tetanus. Come down with tetanus.
Rabies. Rabies is like one of the worst ways to die, man. I don't know if you've ever researched it and looked into it, but you don't want to get freaking rabies, man. That's neither here nor there.
No. I've only seen that Seinfeld where Elaine thinks she's getting rabies. That's
get out of here. When we're done with this show, I want you to go look up rabies and what happens to you, and it won't make you very happy. But on the topic of the POA, right? So you talk about it can be broad, it can be specific, and then another distinction that's in place on these is you can have a POA that just takes place in the event of your incapacity. And so if that's the situation, there's usually going to be some mechanism to define what incapacity is in that situation. And the POA is only going to be effective if you don't have that capacity, if you're out of the picture in some way. Or you can have it where it's there for convenience and someone can just step up and act on your behalf, whether or not you're incapacitated. But I think that's a pretty general rundown of what a POA is and what a POA does, which is a good bit different from a guardian, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a power of attorney is the easy way to handle that situation. And so what we've seen, I've had a couple of consults here over the past week or two where there is no power of attorney in place. And what happens there is, children are coming in, adult children, right, are coming in and saying, hey, mom's in a home, dad's in a home, he's not getting out. I need to help him. I need to take care of the finances, mortgage property, sell, cars, whatever it is. And they can't do it. They don't have a power of attorney in place. And the bad thing about a power of attorney is if you don't have one before you become quote unquote incompetent, that means a lot of different things at a lot of different times, but you can't handle your own affairs anymore. You can't now do a POA. You need it done before you need it.
Yeah. No one's going to just like wink at you and let you do it. Right. Like if you get to that point, it's unfortunate. We hear about it all the time where folks, your mom's in the hospital and you go in and they're not going to let you, if you lack those documents and you don't have the proper authority, you are going to be in a tough spot. And same thing if you're dealing with a bank, if you're dealing with the personal affairs of somebody. If you don't have that and you need to have it, you're going to be looking at a guardianship, which is far more cumbersome than the level of work required to go and execute even a relatively simple power of attorney. That's going to be extremely powerful in terms of what you need it for, as opposed to if we're talking about a guardianship, we're talking about an involved, time-consuming, costly legal process.
Yeah, the guardianships is a legal process whereby you apply to the court to be a guardian, right? So if your mom goes into a home and you've got to handle things for her, you don't have a POA, you can't do it, you apply to be a guardian, and that guardianship proceeding is going to require some proof. There's some proof burdens. You're going to have to go before a judge. There may be other witnesses called, but they're going to make sure that you actually need to be a guardian. So it's a legal process. It doesn't move quick. And it's no fun from an attorney's perspective. There's a lot of fees involved. Relatives can challenge, right? Yeah. So if you have a relative who doesn't think your mom needs a guardian, they can challenge you, and it's A POA is very easy. In comparison, a POA, getting a power of attorney in place, very cheap, very easy. And man, when you need one, you need it. And if you don't have it, it's kind of a pain.
Yeah, wouldn't you much rather have you be able to say, this is the person I want to handle these affairs for me, as opposed to your least favorite child going to the court and you can't even tell the court that I don't even like that kid. That kid doesn't even watch box breaking videos with me.
Well, I think you guys bring up a really good point. And again, people get busy with their lives, and I think our true nature is we procrastinate on a lot of things. And as you grow older, you're focused on maybe what you're going to do when you finally do get to retire and you do walk away from the job, but you're not thinking about the end game and, long-term care and what happens if, and, what about legacy and what about that power of attorney? What about having that will? People just don't, it's just not in their wheelhouse. And it's almost like you have to remind them that, once you have this taken care of, there's just this peace of mind knowing that you can move forward. But a lot of people just don't do it.
Well, it's tough.
Yeah,
it's a morose subject, right? Like it's
True.
not the most exciting thing to think about dying and your mortality. But if you don't think about it, it's a bad, it puts the ones you leave behind in your family in a tough spot.
The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm, where you can find them, just tackling power of attorney and guardianship. We'll have more legal topics coming back on the other side. I want to remind you that Josh and Joe are managing partners of the firm, practicing attorneys here in North Carolina, and they put offices pretty much everywhere for your convenience: Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, Gastonia, and Morehead City. So if you have a legal situation, if you have questions you need answers to, you can always call the firm, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Leave your contact info, briefly what that call's about, and an attorney will be in touch with you. Also, you can email your questions to the show, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. We've got more when we come back.